And in the words of the great late John McCririck, we have flip-flopping favourites at the top of the US presidency market. What price was Donald Trump? His peak price after the last election. William Kedjanyi has major surprise in store for you. He was actually a fancy price. He is now favourite. We're also going to talk about Keir Starmer, the trials and tribulations of the Labour leader and the betting to replace him. And we'll just talk about politics in general. William Kedjanyi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you, Johnny?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. We should just start. It's been a pretty tragic few weeks actually for British politics, but it obviously went to a new level with the death of Sir David Amis, and this was just. I mean, what do you say? It's and what struck me about the tributes that were paid to him, even by an Irish Catholic priest who befriended him, a wide range of people actually who got to know him, that he was just one of these ordinary, decent men, and maybe the type of something of an anachronism in the political world nowadays. He actually really cared for his constituents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just the depth of the tributes to him really shows what he was all about. I cannot claim to have known very much about him, but I think in a way that's sort of a testament to him and his ability just to get on with his job and to be the best MP he could be, of course, so whilst calling each and every PMQs every chance he got for Southend to be a city, which is now going to happen posthumously. And it's really, really shocking and tragic event. There wasn't a single person seen who I don't think considered it a complete and utter tragedy, and fought so very much with his family and friends at this time.
Absolutely. And we'll stay with British politics for now. Talk to me about Keir Starmer. Obviously, there's the Dominic Cummings, his influence is, he's almost like somebody who's kind of talking from he's talking from the grave. It's like he's not there, but he's just passing on these little notes to somebody every week or two to kind of stir the pot. And it's very entertaining, if nothing else, although Keir Starmer might disagree, as would Boris Johnson, actually.
Yeah, so not satisfied with torpedoing the Prime Minister. The leader, I should say, of the Labour Party is very much getting it. And Cummings' latest, difficult to describe one of his Substack posts, really. I can't find an adjective for it, but his latest missive, we'll use missive, is against Keir Starmer. Now, this isn't the first time he's targeted him. He is absolutely not a fan of the leader. But interestingly, he does see a path back to power for Labour, which is not something really that too many observers I found have, nor really the betting markets. And Labour are fairly short to take the most seats in the next election. They're the 7-4 shot, but structurally, it's a huge challenge. And I thought it was very interesting that Cummings clearly had this pretty detailed playbook. Long story short, he believes that the answer to Labour's problems is Lisa Nandy, who he basically told the Labour Party to hire in, I think it's tweet 6 or 7 of his thread, saying Starmer is such a dud that when PM supported the Met over hail a bus advice to women, he rushed out to support number 10. Fire him, appoint Nandy, and aim her at violent crime.
This might sound a stupid question, but like, is this something that she wants or no?
No, I don't know. She doesn't want not in that style. No, there can be a bit of a poison chalice to the famed. This is the one politician that the opposition really fears. Sort of crown that gets appointed every few years or so. It's interesting that Nandy is the only person that Vote Leave staffers appear to respect, but again, I think there can sometimes be a bit of kidology at play there. What you would have to say, I think, regardless of your opinion of her politics, is that she's easily amongst the most effective MPs in the Labour Party politically. Although that said, from a personal point of view, I wonder if she's positive enough about Labour, which is something I think you could say about I think quite a few of the front bench anyway. But the crux of Cummings' argument basically was that the crime issue, the issue of violent crime and small business ecosystem will be, I think, the place you can target the Tories at the next election, whenever that is. Now, if Labour shifts focus away from London, and he actually said that they should move the headquarters to a Lytton's Tory-held marginal, in other words, moving to basically near the Red Wall, that the Tories will turn against each other. Now, I wouldn't necessarily put it as simply as that. I think it's much more complicated, but there are jitters in the Red Wall. The Conservatives are not polling as well there as they did in 2019. The gap is still a fairly substantial one. We're still in comfortable Tory majority territory, but Labour are closer, and if they were to make ground in particular areas, in other words, sort of particularly winning back what you describe as Red Wall seats, interesting, depending again on what happens between now, hypothetically, in the next election, which is an 8-15 shot to be held in 2024. Nandy's a 15-2 shot to be the next Labour leader.
Is that value?
I don't think it's obvious value, but I don't think it's a terrible price. I mean, my main betting opinion on the next Labour leader market is that 94 Andy Burnham is one of the worst political prices I've ever seen. It could take him 5 years to get qualified, by which point you might as well be having a leadership election, depending on how well or badly Keir Starmer has done already. And also, I don't know whether you'd want to lead the job of being a big and powerful regional mayor, which is also the same reason I don't really fancy Sadiq Khan at 16s.
It's interesting that there are so many women in the market without Burnham, like really, really prominent in the market.
Yeah, and many people would tell you that Labour probably should have picked one of them to be leader to replace Corbyn. It is quite surprising that a party like Labour hasn't had a woman as leader. They've had a lot of women who are more than capable of doing the job, and plenty of women, I think, who have made a pretty big impact in British politics, and it still hasn't happened yet. And I personally don't think there'd be necessarily an inherent advantage or disadvantage with having a woman as leader. I don't think it came to the aid of Theresa May, but I don't think it would hinder somebody running next time against Boris Johnson. And maybe he would have more trouble running up against a woman, but it's one of those things to wait and see. But I thought that was interesting. And Nandy is 15-2. Haven't seen much price pressure on it yet, but we do tend to see quite a few news-related market movers, more than we used to, so that'd be interesting.
Okay, the States. Tell me what price Donald Trump was after the last election, his peak price, and what price is he now? And this is something that we didn't. I'm not saying we predicted it, but it's not all that bonkers at all that he's gone favourite, in that he effectively would seem to have relative control of the GOP. And, obviously Biden's term has a long, long way to go. Who knows what's going to happen there? Kamala Harris hasn't really impressed. So what's going on?
Well, to answer your first question, Donald Trump was 20-1, a peak of price of 20-1 for the next election, which is in 2024. He is now, drum roll or funeral horns as you feel appropriate, 7-2 favourite to be elected president. Now, this does stem from one key factor, which is that there is some doubt over Joe Biden being the Democratic nominee again. Not a very usual situation for a president midway into the first term, especially when they hold a Senate majority, albeit a razor-thin one, and one that they could lose. But even then, it's not really the norm for a Democratic president, or indeed a president of either party, to be as big as 15-8 for their nomination going again next time. And that's probably why Joe Biden is, in relative terms, such a big price. But it makes sense. It makes sense. The events at the Capitol, shocking as they were, did not bring a split in the GOP. or if they did, it was a very small fissure. And the vast majority of the voters and the vast majority of the politicians in that party have stayed with Trump. And he is polling about 73 to 75%. He's polling in the 70s, basically, when we have these sort of hypotheticals about
what a world, William.
Yeah, really, what a world. And it's astonishing that you saw a riot basically, well, not basically, but very much encouraged by him. And at the moment, even though he is under investigation, there haven't been any consequences of that.
I met a couple of
nothing tangible.
I met a couple of Americans on holiday the other night who absolutely hate Trump, despite one of them being from Alabama, and she was kind of pinning her hopes on his not getting elected on the basis that he might be in jail come election time. Yeah,
I mean, I think it really will have to be that to stop him. There is not really much in terms of opposition. The rest of the market is filled with contenders who would be serious value if he didn't or couldn't run. But it looks as if he's going to be able to. And with his launch of his new social media platform, I think it's pretty clear the intention is to go again. I'd say 6-5 still is value for him to become the nominee. And I think if you're looking at it, I mean, I'd be backing Trump now on the impulse that he would shorten quite a bit. But if you want a more solid bet, the nominee option is definitely going to be the better option. But if he gets the nomination, I can't see a situation in which he's 7-2 to be hypothetically Joe Biden. And I think he's shorter than that to be almost anybody else in the Democratic Party. So
if you were to pin your collar to it now, who would you suggest will get the Democratic nomination?
I'd say Biden, probably, for the reason that if he can pass his infrastructure bill in any way or form and get on down the road with it, much like levelling up over here, the more tangible the effect of that, the better his chance will be. Also, I think Kamala Harris is easily his chief threat, and I don't think she's had the sort of first term or the start to a first term that would allow her to go for an usurping.
He's now 78, so I mean,
he's very old, but then again, so is Trump. And there was a big battle over getting Biden in to fight the 2020 election. There was very much a worry that he'd have a breakdown in the campaign, he'd collapse. He got through it, I think, okay. I don't think he was amazingly impressive or intense. But I'd say he's probably a teeny bit shorter than the 15-8 shot in real terms to be the nominee. If it can't be Biden, I'd be looking to a senator of sort of cabinet level and who's probably big L liberal and
AOC.
A touch too soon, and I don't think she gets on with the wider party. I can see it happening one day. I can absolutely see it happening one day. But I'd say Warren at 28 and Buttigieg at 14 would be the two.
That's our lot for the week, I think, William Kedjanyi.
Thank you very much. Actually, one last thing. Can I just add in quickly one last thing?
You can indeed.
There's been lots of talk about COVID and the rising.
We never mentioned this. Yeah, what better than a market on restrictions?
Yeah, indeed. We have a market on 3 restrictions being applied. The first is, I don't see it as a restriction, but the first is the mandating of face masks on public transport. This will be really simple. We will settle it as public advice and or guidance telling transport companies that everybody should wear face masks less drinking or eating or being exempt. That's 5-4 now after we broke 50,000 cases today. We are also only 6 to 4 for vaccine passports for nightclubs. Again, the definition will be nightclubs, but also I think places with late night licenses for music, etc. It should be pretty easy to work out and settle with 6 to 4 for that. And for full lockdown, and by the way, we would count full lockdown as last winter's lockdown, the closure of all indoor spaces, the banning of household mixing. We are 4s. That's been clipped in just off the back of the latest case news. For a little bit of a bright spot, however, our booster rate of vaccination is improving. And it looks as if changes are going to be made to the booking system, and changes are also going to be made to the system that vaccinates children, 12 to 15-year-olds. And that's absolutely vital, because there's no doubt now that they're driving a spread, along, of course, with a horrendous mix-up at an Imova lab in Wolverhampton, which basically told 40,000 people that they didn't have the virus when the results were actually positive. I have absolutely no doubt that drove the spread in the southwest, and also the phenomenon of people getting negative confirmatory PCR tests even when they had severe symptoms.
In the words of a great man, or otherwise, it hasn't gone away, but we're going to go away now. William, thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Sonny.
And we shall be back with the polling station on Star Sports TV next week.